So today we have a joint session of 3 publicly funded projects by the LIFE program of the European Commission. My colleague Tomas Jezdinsky will do the introduction a bit more in depth of each project and each speaker. Today's session is a bit longer, 90 minutes instead of 60. So we will tackle your questions after the presentation. We aim to cover as many as possible, but if we cannot manage within the time, we'll address the pending questions in written. Then they will be published in the webpage of the Motors Academy. So now, Thomas, the floor is yours. You can go ahead. Thank you.
So thanks, Fernando. And thanks to the audience to be here with us in this very interesting webinar today. So it's a webinar from a cluster of 3 projects funded under the European LIFE program, as Fernando said. I will do a very short introduction explaining the agenda. Then we have the first speaker from the project Audit to Measure, Milan Matußek. We have the second one from the project KNOWNnNEBs, Gatis Žogla. And we have the third speaker from the EU More project, which I also participate in, Nikos Ntaras from the Greek organization CRES. After each speakers, I will allow very short but only clarification questions. If you did not understand a specific issue, please raise this. Otherwise, we will bundle all questions to the panel debate at the end of the session. And here, please, in the Q&A window, if you have a question to Milan, then put Milan. What do you mean by this? Or Gatis, how do you feel about this? Or Nikos, what is your view on this? So that we know to whom. Otherwise, if the question is very generic, then of course we like the idea of a panel and we'll discuss it across all the speakers. So let me introduce you the LIFE X3 cluster. This is a cluster from 3 projects joining forces to promote not only energy, but beyond energy efficiency measures, mainly to industry, but also to the tertiary sector. These projects have been received fundings from the European Climate Infrastructure Environment Execution Organization under the calls of the Clean Energy Transition programs. But of course, this is our speaker project view and not representative for the European Union or CNEA. So the 3 projects, first of all, why did we cluster? In a nutshell, Audit to Measure, as the name of the project already mentioned it, aims to support companies in their transition towards climate neutrality by accelerating the implementation of energy efficiency measures proposed by energy audits. The important word here is audits. So they really focus on audits as a measure, as a vehicle, and also possibility, but also challenges involved with this. But they're technology neutral, so audits can be done. Audits are there to identify potentials all over the place. Whereas the second one, EU More, as the acronym says, European Motor Renovation Initiative, is very technology focused, meaning industrial motors. It aims to accelerate replacement of old inefficient electric motors in industry and also in the service sector, mainly buildings, because electric motors tend to stay in service longer than generally assumed. And if we accelerate motor replacement, this would free up energy savings in addition to eco-design, meaning in addition to the savings of existing EU regulations with all the associated benefits. So we are technology focused, but of course, already you see the synergies audits are one of the measures here we're taking into place. And besides, if you replace an old motor and you gain energy efficiency, there are non-energy benefits, easier maintenance, less noise on the workplace, etc. Which then I come to the last but not least project here, KNOWNnNEBs, which is an acronym for integration of non-energy benefits into energy audit practices to accelerate the uptake of recommended measures. So this project aims to complement what in the audits energy reports find by emphasizing the proposed measures multiple benefits on top of the reduction in energy losses and carbon emissions, meaning maybe less maintenance downtime, increasing productivity, and others. There was a new methodology developed, tested, and disseminated across industries in 9 European countries with case studies, etc., which then Gatis will follow up in his own presentation later. The overall goals of our cluster was to use exactly these synergies I tried to highlight here in a nutshell, but also the complementary aspects in a joint dissemination. So it's a way to join forces and to identify opportunities towards policymakers, energy auditors, companies, industry in general. As a cluster, we get more visibility. We improve the efficiency of our communication in webinars like this one today or events. So synergies, as I explained, of the project, improved audit follow-up will also encourage motor replacement. If audit to measure emphasizes on specific topics and procedures, the motor replacement will benefit because audit is one of the important measures we're looking into this. And emphasis on non-energy benefits will strengthen the case for acting upon measures detected by audits. So this is an additional add-on why auditors can benefit from. Policy recommendations for stimulating motor replacement can also be used for improving policy making related to energy audits. So it's looping back. And the final goal of our 3 projects is to assist companies and member states in fulfilling their obligations under the EED, the Energy Efficiency Directive, and to contribute to the goals of the clean energy transition in the European Union. And before I hand over to the 3 speakers, I just want to invite you as an outlook. There's our final project event from the project EU More on the 11th of March in Brussels, but also online. So you can also join virtually. And there will speakers from all 3 cluster projects, so also from Audit to Measure and KNOWNnNEBs. And you can register either on our EU More website, on the section events, or on the EU More LinkedIn page. And then it's a pleasure to introduce you to the first speaker, which is Milan Matußek. He's a consultant at Adelphi's energy program. And Adelphi is one of Europe's leading independent think and do tank with over 300 consultants for climate, environment, and development, working in 6 fields of action: climate, energy, which is important here for our topic, but also resources, economy, finance, and diplomacy. So, Milan, the floor is yours. Thank you.
Yes, thank you very much. I will quickly share my screen. Can you see my screen now?
Yes.
Yes, perfect. All right, yeah, thank you for having me and letting me present firstly, of course, the Audit to Measure project, but also our policy recommendations report we from Adelphi published last year in the Audit to Measure project, and it is a policy recommendations report on the implementation of Article 11 of the Energy Efficiency Directive into national policy in the EU member states. Let me give you some brief introductory words on the Audit to Measure project. It is focusing on leading companies towards climate neutrality by speeding up the uptake of energy efficiency measures from energy audits. As you already said, Tomas, it is live funded and started in November 2022 and lasts until this September. The project consists of a consortium of 10 partners, as you can see, from 6 different European countries, Spain, the Netherlands, Germany, Czech Republic, Italy, and Greece. And to achieve the goal to uptake the implementation of energy saving measures after the energy audits, the consortium developed the Audit to Action strategy. This strategy is based on the groundwork that we at Adelphi did on audit systems in the EU member states and especially the 6 partner countries, barriers and drivers for the implementation of energy saving measures in companies and decision-making processes in companies. It also contains, or the strategy also contains, a KPI catalog and a database and a benchmarking system of energy saving measures that was developed by our partners from NTOA from Greece. It further concludes a capacity building program that our partners conducted with industrial companies, and now they also offer direct support for the companies to consolidate all the experience and results from the project. Right now, our partners are developing a knowledge exchange space for companies that I will at the end briefly present to you. And then we from Adelphi developed a policy recommendations report that will be updated when all the results of the Audit to Measure project are gathered. I will briefly give you some insights on the state of the art of the work packages we conducted. And this is the base for our policy recommendations report. In 6 partner countries, we conducted a state-of-the-art analysis of national auditing systems. And some key findings here are that they targeted companies for the audit obligation differ strongly among the countries. In some of the countries, there are some implementation obligation for energy saving measures. For example, the Netherlands and Italy with varying criteria. The control and enforcement measures in all countries are mainly on a sample base and due to lack of personnel in the controlling institutions, often random. Most of the EU member states miss evaluation systems on the impact of the audit obligation within the country, and the requirements for the assessment metrics for energy saving measures in audits vary strongly among all the countries, as you can see in the table below. Additionally, we did a brief and less detailed analysis in all the EU member states with the help of our partners, reaching out to national agencies and ministries. Some key findings here are that the implementation of the Article 8, the audit obligation of the former Energy Efficiency Directive, lasted until 2019, although it was introduced in 2012. 8 member states already included energy consumption criteria before the amended EED right now for the audit obligation, and national evaluations are lacking in most of the member states. Just a quick advertisement here. There are our 2 other reports on management decision processes and barriers and drivers. You can find them, of course, all on the Audit to Measure website. Yeah, coming now to our policy recommendations report based on the results of the state-of-the-arts analysis, the decision-making processes and barriers and drivers. We developed the first version of our policy recommendations report on implementing Article 11 of the amended Energy Efficiency Directive in national policy. It is additionally based on our partners' findings, working with companies in a laboratory of ideas. Yes, it contains a comparison of Article 8 EED and Article 11 of the amended EED, identification of synergies of Article 11 with other EU policies, namely the CSRD, the Industrial Emissions Directive IED, and the EPRTR regulation. It further contains the identification of gaps, barriers, and unrealized potential concerning to energy-saving measures of national audit systems, and yeah, then recommendations for national policymakers and also recommendations to improve the European framework. Here is a short overview of the changes and things that stayed the same in Article 11 of the amended EED compared to Article 8. Most prominent changes are, of course, the energy management system obligations for companies with an average annual energy consumption of more than 85 terajoule. The introduction of energy consumption thresholds in general to obligate companies to carry out energy audits. Before there were none. These count for, or the threshold is 10 terajoule of annual energy consumption over the last 3 years. And another prominent prominent change was the introduction of action plans that contain all the economically and technically feasible measures from the audit, as well as their annual implementation rate. Companies with energy management systems are still exempted from the audits. This also counts now for companies with an energy performance contract. These also exempt from the energy management system obligation. Further, member states can support the companies to disclose their data on energy and water consumption. Article 11 also suggests member states to develop online platforms to facilitate the data collection for national audits data. And the audits must now explicitly identify energy efficiency measures to reduce energy consumption and also assess potential to cost-effective use or production of renewable energies on site. Coming now to the core of our recommendations report, of course, the policy recommendations. First, on a national level, we separated the national recommendations in 5 categories that address different barriers. As you can see, they're categorized in financial incentives, regulatory measures, company support measures, and measures that focus on audit quality and control monitoring and evaluation measures. Under financial incentives, we suggest targeted funding. I will not, just to let you know, I will not focus on all the measures we included in the report. I will just give you some of the most important ones. So under financial incentives, we suggested targeted funding of high impact measures that due to their cost and complexity have low implementation rates. In the regulatory measure groups, we listed policy measures such as the implementation of minimum requirements for the content of the action plans. These could be based on existing national guidelines and requirements for the content of the audit reports. For example, investment plans or monitoring plans. They should also include long-term energy reduction and CO2 targets, and to focus more on long-term targets. And the action plans could further also be linked with the transformation plans required under the Industrial Emissions Directive, because it is very important to avoid double reporting by companies and to find more synergies between EU legislation. For some low-hanging fruits, energy-saving measures that are easy to implement and pay back in a short time, member states might consider implementation obligations, as they already exist in some of the member states and work well. As we heard from the interviews, especially with the energy ministry in the Netherlands, sorry, the responsible energy agency there. And however, to enroll them effectively, they should be accompanied by an effective control and compliance system. To overcome informational and organizational barriers, we suggest some company support measures like the promotion of integration, integrated environmental management systems for large companies to have a more holistic overview over all emissions caused by the company. To raise the quality of the audits, we suggest further trainings for auditors, which brings us to the next block. The proposed measures aimed to improve the audit qualities, and there we suggest financial and technical guidance provided by the energy auditors in the energy audits for the implementation of energy efficiency measures, and a stronger focus on non-energy benefits, because this was something that was often requested by the companies our partners work with. So yes, in most of the EU countries, there are already standardized audit templates and reports. Still, in some countries, this is not the case, and it is a very easy measure to improve the audit quality and to evaluate them better and have a better comparability between them. Another rather easy measure is the implementation of an official certification system of auditors, because this helps to bring trust to the companies concerning the auditors. The last group, we suggested measures to cover the fact that only in a few member states there are effective controlling, monitoring, and evaluation measures, so that the audits are actually conducted in a correct way. And as I said before, there's a lack of national evaluations of the audit systems. These could help to actually understand the impacts of the audit systems and improve the legislation, both on national and on European level. Which brings me to my last point, our recommendations on EU level. We suggested some recommendations to improve also the EU legislation, like the provision of templates for data submission and the creation of an interactive data collection platform to increase the comparability of results. And especially, or it is important to have it on EU level to reduce the effort for national authorities. To overcome the problem that there are still only a few countries with national evaluation systems. The Commission could set clearer requirements for the evaluation and reporting of the implementation of Article 11, and to improve audit quality and the uptake of energy efficiency measures, the standardization of energy audits and auditor requirements on EU level, including additional trainings and certificates for auditors, is could be is a useful tool. Further, we suggest emphasizing synergies between the different EU legislation. As I mentioned before, one synergy could be to actually link the transformation plans that are asked or questioned under the IED with the action plans that are needed for the EED. The focus should be on more linkages between the EU regulations. Also, there could be data collection platforms and also the used the already gathered data under the IED, EED should be also used for reporting under the, for example, the CSRD. All right, this is our recommendations report. Just to give you, as I mentioned before, this is our knowledge exchange space where, companies can access all the results that are gathered under the Audit to Measure project and also can exchange. We will share our slides at the end, so you can access the knowledge exchange space under this link. And if you have further questions, my colleague Simone Maggiore from the Audit to Measure project is also in the call, who could give you some answers on the exchange space. Thank you.
Milan, many thanks for the very interesting presentation, just on time. I saw here one specific questions in the Q&A box. Milan, maybe you can answer this by written. So I would, because we're just on time, and I'm happy about this, so I would just allow maybe one or two clarification questions, or just understanding issues where we need to immediately answer. Otherwise, please put your questions already in the Q&A box, and then Milan can already try to answer by written. Afterwards, we will take the technical questions to the panel, because this could be also interesting for the other panelists as well. So thanks a lot. And then it's a pleasure to introduce the second speaker, Gatis Žogla. He's researcher and energy auditor at Ekodoma. Ekodoma in Latvia is an independent engineering consultant company offering environmental training and consulting services. They self-conduct energy audits, do technical analysis, and issue environmental permits. So the floor is yours, Gatis. Thank you.
Thank you, Tomas, for introducing me. So in my today's speak, I would like to address a thing which we have been really actively looking at for the last 2 years, is how to help companies to decide on energy efficiency measure implementation, and which of the measures should be implemented and which should not be implemented. So our KNOWNnNEBs project was already introduced by Tomas, but there are 9 countries where we are actively working on helping companies and other stakeholders to understand how you should evaluate energy efficiency measures. And today I just wanted to briefly run through the things which we have done in one of our work parts of work, which is on the actual evaluation package and how to evaluate energy efficiency related investments. But my story will start in a little bit weird place. So just as an analogy, if you're asking yourself the question on how to buy a car, so what happens then? You say, I want a new car. Then the next question for you is, what should I look for when buying the new car? So, you could say, okay, fuel efficiency, it's very important. I'm just looking for the most fuel efficient car, and that's it. As a result, what you have bought is a very fuel efficient car, and everybody should, in theory, be happy. But what we see is that there always is something not really right, and nobody actually is buying cars in such way. Because when you're buying only based on fuel efficiency, you'll get uncomfortable seats, high maintenance costs, lacking safety features. The car can drive in winter, and you live somewhere in north of Sweden where there's a lot of snow. So, and nobody is buying cars like this. But the thing with energy efficiency measures, and when we're planning energy efficiency measures, quite often we do plan them like this. What is the energy savings? What are the costs? And those are the two main things which are determining will we implement the measure or will we not implement the measure. So, and what we have done is firstly, we have to understand that there are many benefits and possible drawbacks of energy efficiency measures, which are not directly related to energy savings and energy efficiency. And what are these drawbacks and benefits? So non-energy benefits at the moment have been known for quite some long time that there are these different types of benefits, like improved indoor air quality, less downtime during production, or better quality products, and so on, which are accompanied when you're doing energy efficiency improvement measures in your companies. The problem is that they have not been really, there has not been a method how to methodologically look at them and incorporate them into your decision making regarding energy efficiency measure implementation. Of course, we have to be fair and always remember that non-energy benefits always will come also with non-energy efforts or the drawbacks of energy efficiency implementation. You have to remember that each coin has both two sides. So what we have done is also fairly said that there are these non-energy efforts, as we are calling them, that the drawbacks of energy efficiency measure implementation. And when you're planning energy efficiency implementation, you have also to look at them. For instance, there will be more noise during construction works. There will be more dust during construction works. There could be some problems with construction companies and so on. And those are the things which you should take into account. But what we have seen so far is when evaluating energy efficiency measures, those are the things which are not really looked upon. Maybe in some cases you know that there is this thing, but how much does it weigh in monetary effect, you do not know. So how energy efficiency measures should be evaluated. The existing approach, what we can see is usually we put these two things on scales. One is investment necessary for energy efficiency improvements, and the other is the energy savings. But as an analogy, I could say you cannot weigh yourself by putting only one leg on your scale. It will show some result, but the result will not be correct. So our project, KNOWNnNEBs methodology, which we have developed and shall show a little bit later on, is that if you want to weigh yourself, you have to step on the scale with both legs. So you have to take into account all of the benefits on additional drawbacks or efforts associated with implementing energy efficiency measures. And this is what we have been trying to do, and I think we have achieved quite a good result. So what we have developed in our project, there are multiple things. So one is the methodology, which describes the entire process of this planning, analyzing, and presenting outcomes of energy efficiency measures. This methodology is accompanied with two tools. One tool is guiding you on how to identify non-energy benefits and also these non-energy efforts a little bit for implementing energy efficiency measures. Then there's the tool too, which I will discuss a little bit more exact today, is the evaluation process, mathematical evaluation, how you should evaluate the impacts of NEBs and as non-energy effects, which will enable you to really understand, is this energy efficiency measure necessary for me or not? And also, what we have found out is that company representatives not always are familiar with energy savings, which are expressed in megawatt hours. So we have come up with approach how to present your results in such a way that the decision maker, which is usually top manager of the company, understands the results of what you have been calculating. There are some small additions I wanted to make, is that our project was aimed for food and beverage industry, but as we see now, this methodology can be used exactly as well in any domain where energy efficiency measures are thing. So in any type of industry, and also I would extend the usage of the tools for like building renovation and residential building renovation and everywhere where energy efficiency measures is a thing. Initial target group was who would be using these tools and methodology were energy auditors, as we thought would be the main stakeholder group. But now we see that representatives from companies actually could even benefit more from our tools, and they would be the ones who could, with some trainings, be able to actually use these tools in a better way than energy auditors could. We just have finished testing and updating these tools. And by just, I really mean just, because we finalized these tools like yesterday. And these tools will be available publicly for everybody. They will free access. You will be able to modify them. They are made in Excel. So, and no hidden parts there. And they will be available at our project's webpage. The tool too, which I would like to mention today a little bit more, is a tool which mathematically evaluates energy efficiency measures and takes into account non-energy benefits and non-energy efforts, which is the tool itself mostly is based on a rather new standard called valuation of energy-related investments. And we have added some very crucial parts to this tool. What this tool can do and how it looks. It does the comprehensive financial metrics like net present value, internal rated return, return of investments, sensitivity, scenario analysis, capex analysis, which calculates the permissible energy efficiency costs. It also, we have found a way how to give a monetized value to those non-energy benefits and non-energy efforts, which cannot be really well quantified. For instance, you cannot really well quantify what would be the improvement of indoor air quality if you install a new air handling unit, because it's not that well defined, but we have found a way how to give a monetized value which can help to decide, do you need this new air handling unit or not? And the best thing I think the tool summarizes up is that we have developed a new benefit indicator, which is one single number which says to the company representative, you should implement or you should not implement the energy efficiency measure which you are looking for. So visually and some screenshots of the tool. At the moment, the tool will be available in 10 languages. And you just, by choosing which language, the tool will automatically change the language for you. Then there is this net present value analysis, and we're analyzing the effects just of energy savings and also effects when we are including non-energy benefits and what are the effects. And usually we see that these non-energy benefits have quite large effect in quite a lot of cases. Then the tool will do the sensitivity analysis, how changing some of the parameters of which you are not sure will affect the end result. And this is a crucial part which should be included in analysis. Also, the tool will by itself make 3 scenarios of based on what can happen with these different parameters which we use in calculations. So it will generate the most likely case, best case, and worst case, and you just have to go through and see the results. It also does the CAPEX analysis, which says how much the energy efficiency measure is allowed to cost for it to be economically feasible. And the best thing which we have done, I think at least, is this. We've created one unique number, which is called benefit indicator, which says, is it for you good to implement this measure or not? So 0 means that it's neither good, neither bad. +3 means you had to implement this yesterday. So -3, you shouldn't implement it, never. So what kind of answers our tool can give is, if we compare regular energy audit versus our new methodology. So for example, from Latvian case, on deep renovation of a building, regular energy audit, and this is based on a plus minus real case in Latvian conditions, is that we estimate in a regular energy audit, we just say your building will save 180 megawatt hours of energy, which is almost 15,000 euro per year saving. And the simple payback is 27.3 years. And usually this is where energy audits stop. And based on this, you would suggest that this measure should not be implemented because the payback time exceeds 20 years. With our new methodology, taking into account all effects of this deep renovation of building, you can get a result that over a 20-year period, net present value of all effects of deep renovation of this building would sum up of 91,000 euros, which is a positive value. And this is a good thing. And yes, we can actually see that for energy savings alone, you would get negative net present value. But by taking into account all of additional benefits, which make even in this case even more than the energy savings, and what types of non-energy benefits we have included, and we have come up with that the result is benefit indicator for this case is 0.713, which actually strongly supports implementing of this renovation. So what we can see is by taking into account all effects which are accompanied in this case by deep renovation of building, you can come up with different answers than by just looking at the regular energy audit, which says in this case you should not renovate your building. By accounting for both energy savings and non-energy benefits, our methodology does provide more comprehensive and better overview of the results, and can increase the rate of energy efficiency measure implementation, because we have found a way, at least as I think, how to really show all. We are using holistic approach, showing all benefits and all drawbacks of energy efficiency measure implementation. There are still some things we are going to do at the moment in our project. We are developing a training course, which is 8 hours, which does seem a lot, but I think if you would attend to these training materials, which will also be available on YouTube, I would like to say that I can guarantee that spending these 8 hours would pay back for your 8 hours would pay back by getting the knowledge which we have gathered, and thanks to all project partners who made it possible. And then, of course, we are looking for meetings with companies, banks, legislators, and other stakeholder groups, just to promote our new methodology, and just to say that if you want to weigh yourself, it's not enough to put one leg on the scale. You have to put both legs on the scale. So this was just a short introduction on our project and what we have done. In upcoming, I would say 1 to 2 weeks, we will publish these tools methodology in our project website, and then everybody will be able to take a look at it and do some some calculations with your projects and see how the tool works. The training materials, which will increase your knowledge quite drastically, would be developed in a couple of months' time. But already, I think you can use these tools in a couple of weeks. You can start using these our new methodology. So that was shortly from my side. Thank you for listening. And I'm giving back floor to Tomas.
Great, Gatis. Many thanks for this very interesting presentation. Also, the promising outlook of the training course. So you still have some work to do, and hopefully in March, also during the final event in Brussels and online, you will tell us a little bit more. Again, if there's any clarification, need an understanding question, please now. Otherwise, you can continue to put the questions in the Q&A window, and then Gatis can also already start to answer. And the same for Milan. If you still have questions on Milan's presentation, feel free to type it in. They can answer by written. Otherwise, we'll take it to the very end. So it's a pleasure now to introduce the last but not least of the three speakers, Nikos Ntaras. He is head of transport, infrastructure and alternative fuels department at CRES. And CRES stands for Center for Renewable Energy Sources and Savings. This is a national coordination center in Greece in the areas of renewable energy sources, rational use of energy, and energy savings, taking into consideration the principles of sustainable development. And Nikos will tell us something about the EU-MORE project. The floor is yours, Nikos. Thank you.
Thank you, Thomas, for the introduction. I guess you can see my screen. So let's go straight to my presentation for the EU-MORE project on accelerating the replacement of old and inefficient motors. So we know that electric motors account for more than 50% of EU electricity consumption, and our project addresses motors that have a power rating of more than 0.75 kilowatts. And we know, based on a Swiss survey, that 50% of the concerned motors are in operation for more than 20 years. So they're quite old. And although figures for EU are lacking, we expect the situation to be similar. So accelerated motor replacement, especially if combined with motor system optimization, can have great energy savings of approximately 100 terawatt hours per year in the EU. So quite a lot of potential here. One of the first tasks in our project was to produce a report, a motor policy review on past, current, and future policy measures addressing motor renovation. And actually, we identified 64 different policy measures, and that have been analyzed according to budget, available funding, targets, eligibility criteria, and some first results were that subsidies, loans, fiscal measures, and market-based instruments are predominant, that non-subsidy policies like mandatory standards or informational measures represent about 1/3 of the analyzed policies. Informational barriers do not seem to be adequately considered, which is quite important. Motor replacement is generally included in cross-cutting energy efficiency programs. So we see there are not many dedicated motor replacement programs. Criteria are often fuzzy or not explicit in such programs, and very few policies include a systemic approach to motor systems where we can have the greatest energy savings. We also know that, for example, according to the De-risking Energy Efficiency Platform, the DEEP platform, investments for energy efficient motors have a median avoidance cost of 4.63 euro cent per kilowatt hour and the median payback time of 4 years. which is based on 1,263 projects. So it seems that such investments are economically appealing. So why old and inefficient motors are not replaced by new and efficient ones? Because it's not about only financial barriers that we need to address. There are also other barriers like organizational or information ones. And we need to address them as well. So one of the first recommendations is to follow an integrated approach. Because if you need to have a successful outcome of such programs, you need to take into account all factors. For example, you need to collect baseline data, to implement information campaigns and capacity building activities, to encourage also the implementation of such measures which are identified by energy audits, to provide also subsidies or tax reliefs, and also to have a system for impact reporting. Moreover, you need to follow a stick and carrot approach, let's say, meaning that we need to combine incentives with penalties for non-compliance. And also in the cases of financial incentives, they should be carefully designed to ensure that free riders are deterred from participating. We should also plan long-term, meaning that the program should run long enough to become familiar to market participants, but on the other hand, it should not apply for so long in order not to distort market price mechanisms. We should keep it clear, simple, and transparent. So subsidies should be clearly specified. Also, selection procedures in such programs should be transparent to stimulate participation and build mutual trust, which is very important. We should also build on best practices, meaning that there is no need to reinvent the wheel each time. We should learn from success or failures of past and existing programs. And of course, we should adapt them to the specifics of each country. We should also integrate calculation tools that follow a life cycle approach, like the tool that has been developed by our project, EU More. By the way, you can download this tool from our website. It's a simple Excel file, so feel free to download it and use it. We should adopt a system approach because, as we know, the benefits of replacing an old motor can be enhanced by addressing the entire motor system. Of course, as mentioned before, we should take non-energy benefits into account. Raising awareness about non-energy benefits can make a motor replacement investment more attractive to industrial decision makers. We should consider material availability and circularity. For example, programs for such accelerated motor replacement should be aware of the life cycle material balance, and they should rank alongside measures stimulating recyclability and also the minimization of the use of critical raw materials. And we should keep up with technological innovations, meaning that we should take into account more digitalization, artificial intelligence, and other technologies. Actually, during our national workshop in Greece, it was really impressive. We had invited many large companies, industrial companies, to give presentations on energy efficiency, and almost all of the interventions presented were about digitalization and artificial intelligence. So we took these first, let's say, guidelines and policy recommendations, and we brought them to our events with stakeholders, national and co-creation workshops, and we collected some feedback from the stakeholders, some valuable, I would say, feedback. For example, you can see here some statements from the stakeholders that, for example, from the co-creation workshop in Austria, that the baseline for the energy savings calculation will be the efficiency of the old motor until the end of the normal normal service life, but what is the normal service life? So we need standardized values for these, as perhaps a standardized method for calculating the energy savings of early motor replacement. Also, we've seen in several policy measures that it was very successful to have a mandatory implementation of the findings and suggestions of energy audits. But on the other hand, during these events, we had some comments that mandatory inclusion of motor system assessments in energy audits, there is a risk of being counterproductive since it will make the audit more complex. Also, that SMEs could use a one-stop shop for all information and support, and also they could benefit from free audits. And for example, from Germany, that although profitability and climate protection are high on the agenda of industrial companies, they will not go for anticipated motor replacement without subsidies. And also in Greece, for example, that given the limited financial resources of SMEs, these companies rely on the support of public financing programs for their investments. Therefore, measures that are beyond the scope of such programs will not be implemented, even if they have a high rate of return. Also from Portugal, for example, that technical training and awareness campaigns are more important than creating additional regulations, and the entire value chain should be addressed. And also there were some also other interesting remarks. For example, we should consider, have in mind when implementing such policy measures and programs, are there available the necessary, the new motors that will replace the old ones? Are they available in the market? Also, will they fit perfectly to where the old motor was? So there are such also technical issues that we need to take into account, and actually was happy because based on this feedback from stakeholders from other partner countries, we used this as during the consultation phase in a subsidy program, a new one in Greece that is about new energy efficient equipment in wastewater and water treatment companies. We have therefore come up with a set of policy recommendations for the EU member states. The first one is about data. So we're missing data, and energy audits could be used to collect such baseline data on motor stock, for example, for including power rating, efficiency, age, and this could assist greatly the managing authorities for designing such programs, for example, or the companies. Also, there are cases where there is a high energy saving potential, but the investment is not sufficiently attractive from an economic point of view. In this case, we suggest, of course, to have a subsidy scheme in place to replace old and inefficient motors, but the subsidy rate should be carefully set to deter free riders. But on the other hand, there are cases we've seen that there is a high energy saving potential. The investments are also economically attractive, meaning that the payback is, let's say, less than 4 years, and there is a sufficiently high internal rate of return, but these are not implemented. So in this case, we suggest to initiate a tax incentive scheme combined with voluntary agreements in such cases, mainly to address other barriers like organizational and information ones. Another recommendation would be to update the existing energy efficiency obligation schemes to finance energy audits. So by updating such schemes, obligated parties can be given the opportunity to meet their obligations through financing their clients' energy audits. We should aim at providing free energy audits and capacity building activities for SMEs, because these companies are often unaware of the potential multiple benefits and do not have the necessary resources to undertake high-quality energy audits or to implement energy management systems. And we should initiate information and training programs, and we should also attract private capital by aligning policies with the EU's sustainable finance framework. For example, as you may know, the EU taxonomy regulation has created a list of, let's say, environmentally sustainable or green activities. And if we manage to have dedicated actions like motor system optimization or old motors replacement in this list of activities, banks will be enabled more to finance such investments. We've also come up with some national policy recommendations for the partner countries participating in the project. For example, in Austria, to explicitly mention motor replacement and VSD installation on motor systems under the Austrian subsidy scheme for energy efficiency in industry, and to raise awareness via the Klimaaktiv program. In Germany, to incorporate the motor replacement initiative in the federal funding for energy and resource efficiency in the economy program, which is an initiative aimed at private companies, municipal companies, freelancers, and contractors. And in Greece, to take advantage of the established energy efficiency obligation scheme to further enable the obligated entities to meet their obligations by directly funding their clients' energy audits. In the Netherlands, to maintain but fine-tune the energy investment allowance, and very successful scheme, which is a program granting tax deductions to industrial companies investing in energy efficiency. Therefore, it is suggested to have a lower deduction rate, about 40%, to limit the number of free riders while maintaining the attractiveness of the scheme. And in Portugal, to set more ambitious mandatory targets for energy savings. The current target for companies with low consumption is 4% over 8 years, and this commitment could be strengthened. And this could be further complemented by financial support for such investments. And to install a financial support mechanism, for example, tax benefits or subsidies for companies that exceed their energy and greenhouse gas emission targets. Finally, we've produced a set of policy recommendations regarding the circularity of materials. So we should support EU-based motor recycling through financial incentives and penalize waste export through taxation. We should promote end-of-life treatment by certified waste companies. We should stimulate design for recycling and design for disassembly. We should stimulate the research and development of rare earth recovery technologies, and we should support rare earth recycling practices, and also to conduct studies to map end-of-life motor material flows and recycling processes. And so this is it from my side. Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Nikos, for this very nice and interesting presentation.